This video is going to be about Norembega, the mysterious kind of area in civilization that was here before this just facade was put over everything, and the Freemasons and whoever took control of all of the history and all of the monuments, all of the statues, all of the awesomeness. So they've got Norembega, things named Norembega all up and down the New England coast. And one of the books that I'm going to show, I'm going to actually read from a really old book. I'll put the information below. And then I'm going to show pictures of Mount Auburn Cemetery and another set of pictures from a book that claims that Norembega was in Watertown, Massachusetts at the end of the Charles River, and that the Charles River was the Norembega River. And it is an interesting theory because when you see Mount Auburn Cemetery and then some of the buildings around Watertown, some of the ancient structures you'll see from this old book that I found, it leads to a pretty convincing case. And there's a lot of people that kind of pin it in around that area. All different kinds of things. People put it in Maine, though. People put it all over the place. So maybe it was just huge, massive. This is the church that's at Mount Auburn Cemetery, and that's in Cambridge, Massachusetts. That place is magical. There's something about cemeteries in general. I'm going to go deeper into that in another video. But this place, Mount Auburn Cemetery, me and my friend used to go there and just walk around, and it would feel like you're in an ancient Romanesque Renaissance-esque crazy old time. And this was before we ever knew about Tartaria or anything like that. We used to go there a lot and just check out, admire the sculptures and everything. You wait till you see it. The tombs, it's nuts. But I thought this 3 pages from this old book hit the spot. Had a lot of interesting things. It's kind of like a Tartarian tale, but a little bit different. So I wanted to read this, enjoy the pictures, enjoy some of the other text I include in there. This book, collection of voyages and travels, was published apparently I-745, 1745. So it's got a lot of different authors, and I just wanted to read this one chapter. I will probably read some other chapters in the future because it's got some great stuff in it. But here we go, about Norembega, chapter 7 of this particular, I'm not sure what page it's on, page 813. It says, "The rough season being past, Mont de Monts, wearied with his bad dwelling at St. Croix, determined to seek out another port in a warmer country, and more to the south, and to that end made a pinnace to be armed and furnished with victuals, to follow the coast, and discovering new countries, to seek out some happier port in a more temperate air. And because that in seeking one cannot set forward so much as when in full sails one goeth in open sea, and that finding out bays and gulfs, lying between two lands, one must put in, because that there one may as soon find that which is fought for, as elsewhere, he made in this voyage but about 60 leagues, as we will tell you now. From St. Croix to 60 leagues forward, the coast lieth east and west, at the end of which 60 leagues is the river called by the savages Kinnebeki, from which place to Malabar it lieth north and south, and there is yet from one to the other 60 leagues in a right line, not following the bays. So far stretcheth Mont de Monts' voyage, wherein he had for pilot in his vessel Mont de Champador. In all this coast so far as Kinnebeki, there are many places where ships may be harbored amongst the islands, but the people there are not so frequent as is beyond that. And there is no remarkable thing, at least they may be seen in the outside of the lands, but a river, whereof many have written fables, one after another, like to those that they, parentheses, who grounding themselves upon Hanno's commentaries, a Carthaginian captain, have feigned of towns built by him in great number upon the coast of Africa, which is watered with the ocean sea, for that he played an heroical part in sailing so far as the Isles of Cape Verde, where long time since nobody hath been, the navigation not being so secure then upon that great sea, as it is as this day by the benefit of the compass." Wow, this is a tough one. "Therefore, without alleging that, which the first writers, Spaniards and Portuguese, have said, I will recite that which is in the last book, initialed The Universal History of the West Indies, printed at Doway, the last year I-607, in the place where he speaks of Norembega. For in reporting this, I shall have also said that which the first have written, from whom they have had it. Quote, moreover, towards the north, saith the author after he had spoken of Virginia, is Norembega, which is known well enough by reason of a fair town in a great river, though it is not found from whence it hath its name, for the barbarians do call it Aguncia. At the mouth of this river there is an island very fit for fishing. The region that goeth along the sea doth abound in fish, and towards New France there are great numbers of wild beasts, and is very commodious for hunting. The inhabitants do live in the same manner as they of New France. If this beautiful town hath ever been in nature, I would sayn know who hath pulled it down, for there are but cabins here and there made with pirkies covered with bark of trees, or with skins, and both the river and the place inhabited are called Pemtegoet, and not Aguncia. The river, saving the tide, is scarce as the river of Oif, and there can be no great river on that coast, because there are not lands sufficient to produce them, by reason of the great river of Canada, which runneth like this coast, and is not 80 leagues distant from that place in crossing the lands, which from elsewhere received many rivers falling from those parts which are towards Norembega, at the entry whereof it is so far from having but one island, that rather the number thereof is almost infinite, for as much as this river enlarging itself, like the Greek lambda, the mouth whereof is all full of isles, whereof there is one of them lying very far off, and the foremost, in the sea, which is high and markable above the others. But some will say that I equivocate in the situation of Norembega, and that it is not placed where I take it. To this I answer that the author, whose words I have a little before alleged, is in this my sufficient warrant, who in his geographical map hath placed the mouth of this river in the 44th degree, and his supposed town in the 45th, wherein we differ but in 1 degree, which is a small matter. For the river that I mean is in the 45th degree, and as for any town, there is none. Now of necessity it must be this river, because that the same being passed, and that of Kennebunkport is also in Maine, Kennebunk is a river as well, which is the same height. There is no other river forward whereof account should be made, till one come to Virginia. I say furthermore that seeing the barbarians of Norembega do live as they of New France, and have abundance of hunting, it must be that their province be seated in our New France, for 50 leagues farther to the southwest there is no great game, because the woods are thinner there, and the inhabitants settled and in greater number than in Norembega. True it is that a sea captain named John Alphonse of Xangpong, in the relation of his adventurous voyages, hath written that having passed St. John's Island, which I take for the same that I have called heretofore as the island of Bacalos, the coast turneth to the west, and west-southwest, as far as the river of Norembega, newly discovered, faith saith he, by the Portuguese and Spaniards, which is in 30 degrees. Adding that this river hath at the entrance thereof many isles, banks, and rocks, and that 15 or 20 leagues within it is built a great town, where the people are small and blackish, like them of the Indies, and are clothed with skins, whereof they have a abundance of all sorts. Item, that the bank of Newfoundland endeth there, and that the river being passed, the coast turneth to the west, and west-northwest, above 250 leagues, towards a country where there are both towns and castles. But I see very little or no truth at all in all the discourses of this Maine. And well may he call his voyages adventurous, not for him who was never in the 100th part of the places he describeth, at least it is easy to so think, but for those who that will follow the ways which he willeth mariners to follow. For if the said river of Norembega be in 30 degrees, it must needs be in Florida, which is the contrary to all them that ever have written of it, and to the very truth itself. Concerning that which he saith of the bank of Newfoundland, it endeth by the report of mariners about the Isle of Sablon or Sand, about Cape Breton. True it is that there are some other banks that are La Banquerie or La Banquajequet, but they are but 5 or 6 or 10 leagues, and are divided from the great bank of Newfoundland. And touching the men in the land of Norembega, they are of fair and high stature. And to say that this river being past the coast lieth west, and west-northwest, that hath no likelihood. For from Cape Breton, so far as the point of Florida, that lieth over against the isle of Cuba, there is not any coast standing west-northwest, only there are in the parts joining upon the true river called Norembega, some 50 leagues coast, that standeth east and west. Finally of all, that which the said John Alphonse doth report, I receive but that which he saith, in that this river, whereof we speak, hath at the coming in many islands, banks, and rocks. The river of Norembega being past Mont des Monts, went still coasting until he came to Kennebec, where a river is that may shorten the way to go to the great river of Canada. There is a number of savages cabined there, and the land beginneth there to be better peopled. From Kennebec going farther, one findeth the bay of Marchen, named by the captain's name that commandeth therein. This Marchen was killed the year that we departed from New France in I-607. Farther is another bay called Chavocoet, where, in regard of the former countries, is a great number of people. For there they till the ground, and the region beginneth to be more temperate. And for proof of this, there is in this land store of vines, yea, even there be islands full of it, which be more subject to the injuries of the wind and cold, as we shall say hereafter. There is between Chavocoet and Malabar many bays and isles, and the coast is sandy, with shallow ground drawing near to the said Malabar, so that scarce one may land there with barks. The people that be from St. John's River to Kennebec, wherein are comprised the rivers of St. Croix and Norembega, are called Etechemins, and from Kennebec as far as Malabar and farther they are called Armuchiqua. They may be traders and thieves, and one had need to take heed of them. Mont des Monts having made some stay at Malabar, victuals began to be scarce with him, and it was needful to think upon return, especially seeing all the coast so troublesome, that one could pass no further without peril, for shoals that stretch far into the sea in such wise, that the farther one goeth from the land, lesser depth there is. But before departing, a carpenter of St. Malo's died casually, who going to fetch water with some kettles, and Armuchiqua, seeing fit opportunity to steal one of those kettles, when that Frenchman took no heed, took it, and ran away speedily with his booty. The Malavine, running after, was killed by this wicked people, and although the same had not happened, it was in vain to pursue after this thief, for all these Armuchiqua are as swift in running as greyhounds, as we will yet further say in speaking of the voyage that Mont de Poutrincourt made in the same country in the year I-606. It grieved sore Mont des Monts to see such a thing, and his men were earnest for revenge, which they might do, for the other barbarians were not so far from the Frenchmen, but that a musket shot might have scared them, which they had already on rest, to level every one at his men. But the said Mont des Monts, upon some considerations which many other of this place and dignity might have missed to consider, made every one to put down their musket cocks, and left them alone, not having hitherto found a fit place to make a settled dwelling. And so the said Mont des Monts caused all things to be in a readiness for the return to St. Croix, where he had left a good number of his men, yet weak by the winter sickness, of whose health he was careful. Many that know not what belongeth to the sea do think that the setting of an habitation in an unknown land is easy, but by the discourse of this voyage and others that follow, they shall find that it is far easier to say than to do, and that Mont des Monts hath exploited many things this first year, in viewing all the coast of this land, even to Malabar, which is 400 leagues, following the same coast and searching to the bottom of the bays, besides the labor he forced to in causing houses to be made at St. Croix, the care he had of those which he had brought thither, and of their return into France, if any peril or shipwreck should come to those that had promised him to fetch him at the end of the year. But one may run and takes pains to seek ports and havens where fortune favoureth, yet she is always like to herself. Quote, it is good for one to lodge himself in a sweet mild climate, when one may choose, notwithstanding death follows us everywhere. I have heard of a pilot of New Haven that was with the Englishmen in Virginia 24 years ago. That being come thither, there died 36 of them in 3 months. Nevertheless, Virginia is taken to be in the 36th, 37th, 38th degrees of latitude, which is a good temperate country, which considering I yet believe, as I have already said before, that such mortality cometh by the bad fare, and it is altogether needful to have in such a country, at the very beginning, household, the same cattle of all sorts, and to carry store of fruit trees and grafts, for to have there quickly recreation necessary to the health of them that desire to people the land, that if the savages themselves be subject to the sickness whereof we have spoken, I attribute that to the same cause of evil fare, for they have nothing that may correct the vice of the meats which they take, and are always naked amongst the moistures of the ground, which is the very means to gather quantities of corrupted humours, which cause those sicknesses unto them, as well as to the strangers that go thither, although they be born to that kind of life. Wow. So again, the interesting timeline history of America comes into question, and what the heck really was here, and for how long was it here, and populated beyond belief, civilized, technologized. How amazing was it? Were all these buildings alive? What is underneath? The golf courses, the cemeteries, everything around us. I do not know if Norembega is in Watertown, Cambridge, Maine, who knows where it is, above Virginia, somewhere we don't even know, somewhere off the Google map, somewhere off our map. I have no idea, but I find it very interesting, and I am going to look in Watertown because that book is cool. I'll put the links to that. But I also find it interesting about the distance between how they travel, how it seems like they travel from St. Croix all the way up to Watertown is about 1,700 miles. And so the leagues, or what they refer to as a league, it just doesn't seem like it's a couple miles, or what Wikipedia defines as a league, and how it translates into mileage nowadays, but it seems like something totally different. It seemed like they were covering distances in a very quick amount of time, going back and forth from St. Croix, Cuba, Virginia, all the way up to Newfoundland, and just kind of noticing the coastlines up there, how they're different, the different savages that were everywhere, how some towns had castles, how myths existed about all these towns. So it's like, where did these people come from? Like these Spaniards and ones that they claim founded all these things, and this particular book wrote, and all the surviving literature kind of talks about these particular cultures, but completely eradicates all the other ones, as if they never had any books, or just all of everything that's just been left was wiped out. So that this history just seems different, and it seems like it's coming from people who don't really know, and or maybe they knew too much and they had to adapt it and change it. Who the hell knows? I have no idea. This stuff just puts more theories out there and makes me want to just dig everywhere. We really do have to start a new archaeological trend. I think the more people that get into this vibe in Tartaria will get more and more out of it. I think pretty soon a cultural shift is going to come, and it's going to hit the mainstream in a way that just is going to blast off. And I wonder how they're going to either embrace it or try to trash it like they do the flat earth and other theories. But Tartaria seems different. It seems like people can see it in their towns. People have a hidden knowledge of it. People realize that something's going on right near them. And once you wake out of this one, you really do wake up big, and it feels amazing. And people are going to like that. People are going to latch onto it as they go from one truth to the next. The fake history is the next one. Fake science, fake news, all this stuff is kind of, hitting its peak, hitting its stride. But now it's time for fake history to come into play, because we have been lied to so hard about what happened in America. It is unbelievable, the amount of lies, and we've got to get to the bottom of it. Bless you all.